Good evening. We are picking up where we left off last time. Congratulations, Jigstraw, on being first. Yeah, so last time, I beat Gremory, and I got this thingy, so I can teleport. And as far as I remember, the final boss of the game is through that door. But I don't quite want to do that yet.
Dimension shift! Dimension shift! Dimension shift!
There's a bunch of optional content that I would like to do.
Dimension shift!
So I will. I might need just a minute to get back into the swing of things. This is fine. Endgame is hard. No, I've been on hard since the start of the game. But yeah, my first goal is get 99% map completion. Oh, the bonking. I'm innocent of any and all wrongdoing. Yes, I have done very many crimes, but like... I mean, I guess there is no but for that one, I've done a lot of crimes. Yeah, true, the statute of limitations on those has expired. You can't get mad at me. Yeah, you can't get mad at me for those. They happened too long ago. But yeah, my immediate goal is essentially fill in all the bits of the map that we filled in. Or at least get to 99% as stated. Because that unlocks a boss that I really want to do. For a variety of reasons. And it looks like most of what I'm missing is going to be in the Glacial Tomb, so I'll go there. And by Glacial Tomb, I mean Den of Behemoths. But the two are connected, so... I think I also got a bunch of keys while I was in this area. Which, granted, if I'm going around and, going to bits on the map that I've not been to before, then they'll just naturally get caught. I was about to comment on how sinister the music here sounds, but like... given that we're on the cusp of, like, the king of all demons being summoned, kinda justified, honestly. Got our hands on another diamond, can't say no to that. Well, I could, it would just be a baffling decision. No, granted, those are my speciality. It still amuses me that there's a whole zone that's just another zone but bigger. Like, if you thought that this would take me off my game, you're wrong. I'm short in real life, this is just my day-to-day life. Also, cashmere equipment. That sounds nice. Okay, now I want to get up here. Thank you for the headbats. Something else that I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do or not, because I haven't actually sat down and figured out how much of a grind it is get that blue rose weapon, because I think that's probably Miriam's best weapon. At least within the one-handed sword category, I didn't see any nicer ones. Though you never know. Where'd the dragon go? Oh, there it is. And we level up. Good old Gamba. The secret to being a successful gambler is cheating. As that poor individual discovered. I just remembered that I had that. It's like I don't have to go around things, I can go through things.
Dimension shift.
Well, usually. I should probably take the weapon off of this. I originally put that there because I was...
Dimension shift. Dimension shift.
Doing a fight where periodic access to poison was very useful. Also, that giant rat being there makes me wonder if, like, the giant rats elsewhere in the castle are just ordinary rats that happen to have come from the Den of Behemoths. Yeah, against Alfred, I think his name was. We ran in circles for a long time. But it worked out for me in the end. Okay, so as stated, current goal is to fill in all the blank bits on the map, which shouldn't be too unreasonable. And if I happen to kill things along the way, all the better for me. So in the non-Den of Behemoths fit of this area, there was a boss fight there, if memory serves. Seems to not be the case here. Okay, I just walked on something that didn't exist. These things happen sometimes, I guess. That guy's body went on an adventure when he died. Diamond. I will say, having moderately to strongly powerful regeneration definitely changes how you approach things. It's like, oh, that only does 100 damage to my face. I can live with that. Oh, I remember this guy. Having dimension shift and Aegis Plate is going to make this a lot easier, I think.
Can you keep up?
Yeah, so he zoops off.
Dimension shift!
And my controller disconnects, making me the victor. Come on.
Dimension shift.
I'm pretty sure you can go really, really fast with Dimension Shift, but even just having the Aegis Plate is a big leg up. I don't think I've won on this attempt in particular.
Way too slow.
Oh!
He's literally Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay. I wonder why it doesn't want to go straight up. Is it because it's off screen? Interesting. Okay, I should probably use Reflector Ray instead, because I think they made everything just a little bit too thick for Dimension Shift. But actually, this could be a...
Dimension shift.
that could be a big skip, potentially.
Dimension shift. Dimension shift.
Alright, alright. Being able to entirely disregard hazards is nice either way. And if memory serves, he will race me as many times as it takes.
Can you keep up?
Dimension shift.
There we go. All it took was a little bit of cheating.
How could anyone be faster than me?
And he literally died of cringe. It seems like there was a bit of a hiccup there on the stream. Is everything okay? Can you all still see and hear me? Yes? Okay, good. Also, my map completion is now above 99%, so... 2 birds, 1 stone. Okay, so, with 99% map completion... Also, Accelerator is nice. You can run like Sonic the Hedgehog. With 99% map completion, Odie will offer me a new book. How's it going, friend?
You're quite the avid reader. I suppose it's only fair I let you borrow more books at once.
Tome of Conquest, the ultimate tome equivalent to Prowess, Tailwind, and Mastery. So, attack speed, movement speed, and proficiency growth. So I will yank that.
That tome is especially valuable. Make absolutely sure you return it.
I have not cooked all the different recipes yet. That's gonna fall under crafting, which I have not yet begun a proper grind for. Right now, it's very important that I save my game. Now remember, OD told me that that book in particular is extremely valuable and that I had best return it. So, if I'm carrying that and I go down to the glacial tomb where the game ends... Huh, that's weird, there's a boss key here.
Stop.
OD?
I warned you. What you take from the library must be returned to the library.
Oops.
You'll pay for this transgression. Death is too kind for you.
Librarians take their work seriously. Also, his third little metal spike on his left side, like his left, is clipping into his coat. I swatted that immediately, and I want to bring it to your attention. But also, yes, late fees, your life.
Return what you borrowed. Is too kind for you.
Odie hurts. This is why I had to save my game. If I murder this guy, I gotta go take all the books from the library. Excellent question. Now, that said, easier said than done, because this guy hurts.
Stop.
Yeah, like, hold on. You say you couldn't see it? Hold on. I got this. Hold up, I got this. I got this. Hold up, I got this. Can I zoom this in? Yeah, the bottom left corner of that spike. Hold on, can I make this bigger? It's right there. Yeah. There we go.
Return what you borrowed.
I really gotta set that thing.
Time. Return.
I really gotta set at that thing where I can just like screen grab a portion of the screen and then just like it pops up as a source in OBS. Also, man has 10,000 hit points. And he hurts a lot. I can take maybe like 3 or 4 hits. I might not be able to take him right away, actually. This is hard mode after all. I'll give him a few shots, and if I think that it's just absolutely not happening, I will go seek more power elsewhere.
Return what you borrowed. Dead. Time. Return. Is too kind for you.
You're gonna hit 69,000 year dozen cubes made to stream? Congratulations. Also, yeah, I'm starting to think that, like... I might need to bring a little bit more, everything to this fight.
return what you borrowed. Still dead. Time. Return. Is too kind for you.
Yeah, not sure the best way to handle the time stop. Okay, I think that, I think that the thing to do is to get a little bit more power. I think that's the appropriate course of action here. I do recall that there was an absolutely insidiously hidden thing in the Tower of the Twin Dragons. I want to say there was a really good sword. It's either a sword or a piece of armor. Okay, it must be the other one. Did I say it must the other one? It must be the other one. The other tower, I mean. Or one of these ones. It's one of them. I'll find it. Like, I remember the first time I was playing this game, I was just like, where's all the stuff? And then one of the things, I was just like, that's a thing? Where is that? I know vaguely where it is, I will find it. Are these things crush me if I'm wearing Aegis Pipe? Evidently not. Alright.
Dimension shift! Dimension shift!
Here we are. Valkyrie's sword. I knew there was something like that here. A War Maiden's weapon of choice.
Dimension shift! Yahoo!
That'll make my life a little bit easier. Okay, since I'm here, I wonder if I can get down to the train.
Yahoo!
Steady speed, excellent point. Oh, this is a million times more bearable when you're Sonic the Hedgehog. And I gotta go down a step. I legitimately forgot that I was able to be Sonic the Hedgehog. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so if we go to this this area where the train is, you might notice this little like crown here. That was previously in Dominique's shop, and it moved over here when I picked up the Crown of Creation. I gotta kill a bunny girls? They're demons. Board train. memory serves, there are a couple of secrets here. Especially now that there's no time limit. Here we are. This is one of them. If we sit here and we wait long enough, we'll get a really nice view of the lake if memory serves. And we just keep waiting. This is actually unrelated to the crown, it's a different thing, but it happens to be in the same area. Yeah, this takes a while. I remembered it being 2 minutes, but it could be 5 minutes. Either way, I've committed now. I will say it's not a pure loop. Like, you can see that the castle in the background is like ever so slightly rotating. Oh, here we go. There's a little wiggly wobbly thing. I'm getting tired, it's getting closer. It's gone. What? Jump scare. And just being near it kills you, apparently. Okay. This is my saver game. Oh, I don't even have the Valkyrie sword anymore, that sucks. I did not remember that thing just had like an aura of you die. I did not remember that part. Oh well, this is fine. I remember where I'm going. It won't take me long to get back. Especially with supersonic speed.
Dimension shift! Dimension shift! Dimension shift!
And then we go fast. Yeah, the annoying thing is that spawning the little silver thing is gonna take that same amount of time every time if memory serves. I can put a save there though, at least. That guy has a really rare shard that's incredibly useful if you pick it up. Speaking of shards... Bunny Morphosis. Transform into a lily. Ooh, puppy. Since I got the Bunny Morphosis shard, I'm going to save my game again. I am going to want at least one of every shard type. I don't need to upgrade them or rank them up or anything. Okay, round 2. I think it's kind of cute that there's like a matching set of Valkyrie equipment. Alright, let's try this again. If memory serves, it's if the Quicksilver thingy is looking at you, you take the damage. So you have to find a way to hurt it while it can't see you. I just didn't react fast enough. Yeah, this is gonna take another couple of minutes. Sorry about that. I would speed it up if I could. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is like standing around a corner and like letting my familiar beat him up, or like using Tefsosius. I'm just on my phone, if you can't tell from like my downwards turned keys. It's not a great look, is it, when like the streamer is like distracted by a screen? But here we are. Oh, wait, here we are. It's like, what? This is how he probably makes. Or maybe it's when you're looking at it. There we go. Chart. Resist curses. Well, that was convenient. If memory serves, that shard isn't even 100% drop rate, so I just got really lucky. And realistically, I probably should, I probably really should save my game before, doing this, but here we are, Deadlands. I am here because I wore the crown all the way through the train. This is an area that is a shout out to another game. I want to say it's like a tower defense. I regrettably don't recall the name off the top of my head. Kingdom? It's something Kingdom, I want to say. Yeah. And it's dead. And speaking of shards, familiar archer will defend their monarch from distant threats. You doing 2 crowns? That sounds correct, thank you. Thank you so much. You don't think you remember this at all? Did you perhaps not do it? Because it is somewhat hidden. Laugh at me, see what happens. Put my hat back on. Okay, so then there's another one, I think, down here. I'll just waste them out. And that one I know is a crossover with Journey. Also, I'm pretty sure that these, I think that these DLC things don't count towards the shards that I need, but... I want to do them either way. I just got an achievement for reaching level 50. Nice. Yeah, I want to say that unlocking the journey thing is behind getting to Den of Behemoths. I don't think I ever actually did this one. Not sure if it just wasn't in the game, or if I just didn't realize that it was a thing when I beat the game. The tunnels. It feels weird seeing fire burning downwards. Like, it's nobody's fault on my own. Nobody made me go upside down. Oh, beautiful fabric. I love Journey. I absolutely adore Journey. I really do. If you've never played Journey, and I don't say this very often, but if you've never played Journey, my highest recommendation is literally don't look up a thing about it. Just go play Journey. Like, go in knowing like the smallest amount possible. Like, it's one of those games. It doesn't have any, like, shocking twists or anything per se, it's just... It's a very particular kind of beautiful that I think is best experienced firsthand. I believe it was originally PS3 exclusive, but it has been released on Steam. All that for 1,000 gold. And I could've just dimension shifted through. Oh well.
Dimension shift. Invert.
It's part of the, it's part of the exploration. Boss fight by the looks of things. Guardian? Some kind of like golem dragon thing. Looks like it's only vulnerable on the head. Mistakes are in the process of being made. I wonder if I can safely walk underneath it. I would save, except there's no save rooms. Kind of an obstacle. I don't have anything that makes my MP go back up, regrettably. I wonder if he's having fun up there. Oh, wait. I was thinking to myself, like, you know, the definition of insanity. Looks like it's trying to do the spotlight thing a lot. No, I don't actually know what the spotlight does. I might let it touch me just to find out. Like, my first instinct is like, oh, like, if the boss wants to do a thing, I want to not let it do a thing, but like... Maybe it's like a big open face? Oh, it's a curse. Never mind. I shan't partake. It looks like letting it spot me was just a bad idea. But discoveries are made by people willing to experiment. Okay, I need to not get greedy. Which tends to be a recurring theme in my life. And he's dead. Well, that happened. What was he guarding? Oh, it's pretty. The mystical scarf? Alright. The sacred scarf of a robed figure. Oh, that's pretty, I like that. That mountain is on the horizon, and you can see it basically everywhere in Journey. It's really nice. Are there anything else? Nothing that has a symbol on the map, at least. Alright, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom, anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. I was just getting like a preliminary look at the various shards that I have yet to claim. Because I do want those. I do want all of those. Thank you for the shard donation, Demon Girl. Okay, so I'm just gonna go down the list. There's probably like an optimal way to approach them, but like... it'll be easier on me if I just do what I just said I would. Throw spear. Every time I place that animation, it's because I got a shard for the first time. So that's really nice. Okay, so the first thing that I want is Scythe Bug, I think it was called. Scythe Mite. And those things are native to the Tower of Twin Dragons. Actually, there's a slightly smarter way to go about doing this. What I can do is I can swap out my Tome of Alacrity, I think it was called, for the Tome that boosts luck, because that should give me better drop rates.
That tome. Here to
Okay, my limit is 3. Nice. Okay, so luck, and a bunch of stuff. Yeah, the reward for getting every shard, I do actually need to beat OD4, so this isn't going to help me with that. But it might help me get materials for stuff to help beat him. Equipment that adds luck? I don't know if I have equipment that adds luck. Oh, I'm wearing it. Okay. That works out. Yeah, the bugs are around here somewhere, and once I find them, I will end them. Recipe for pasta. I was actually craving pasta just last night. I haven't had any, but like... I did want some. I will find those bugs eventually. I'm pretty sure I put the thing right. I'm pretty sure that it was here. It might have been in the other tower. Understandably, I don't seem capable of, using Dimension Shift at all in here. I gotta be stuck on Waystones.
Hello, miss.
Huh. No Dominique?
Oh, well, she said she had something to take care of. I'm holding down the fort while she's gone.
Oh, good girl. But who will handle these shards for me?
Oh, well, don't worry. She taught me how to do it.
What? That sounds horribly unsafe.
Well, try me. You'll see. Oh, what would you like to buy?
Does it tell me what fast food's at? Yes, it does.
Is this pleasure doing business?
Yeah, I like how because Dominique left, that little girl that's like been there since the start of the game just kind of takes over.
I haven't. What are we transmuting this time?
Hi, Jump. Take
I'll
those.
go with this.
I don't know if these count. I think it's just the demon shards. Don't quote me on that, though.
I've learned the truth about your slumber, Miriam. As I suspected, it was Alfred's doing.
Why did Alfred choose me?
To create a catalyst capable of stopping time must have taken years upon years. He only had time to save one of you.
But why me then?
Because you were the most attuned.
Zangetsu said the same thing.
To put it a different way, if all the crystal of all the shardbinders had been brought together to create one big catalyst, then your power would have accounted for half of it.
I'm not sure if that's something to be proud of.
With half the catalyst's power missing, Alfred knew the experiment would fail. Blood would be spilled, but at least the world would have some chance of being able to stop the demons. Granted, even half the shardbinder's power caused unthinkable tragedy.
Yes, it did.
The lack of punctuation amuses me.
But Alfred must have realized the experiment was going to proceed regardless of our objections, and decided half measures were better than no measures at all.
It sounds as though you found a little forgiveness for him.
Yeah, holy damage probably would be better against Odin. I'll probably craft that holy shard once I've got more materials to do so. Alright, there was still the thing up here to do as well. I think that demon with like the red body is also a thing for me to get as well. Like I think I don't have its shard. Indeed, I was correct. Augment strength, that's useful actually. I tend to play melee, so I mean that one's probably worth it. And I got the key for this. Oh right, Carpenter, I forgot about him. I've actually been in here. Okay, that's not a stage hazard. And there the shard goes. These things happen. It's okay, I will simply farm it again later. I wonder how reasonable it'd be to move like that with dimension shift.
Dimension shift!
Another new shard. Shuriken, attack with a concealed throwing weapon. Don't think I can get through there. Man's aim is impeccable. It still amuses me greatly that the means by which he summons a demon is to just crack the Ouija board on the spot. And he's dead. I'm not sure if there was like a shard that he could have given me that he didn't. He was the carpenter. Also, that's high jump. Why is my detective's eye not active? Okay, I can't just farm him. Master Carpenter. Maybe I can only have so many auras on at once. Like, visually. Weird. Anyway. Okay, so I might have to farm him for his shard, because I don't think he's DLC.
Dimension shift!
Still, having fought him, that was cool. Honestly, once the demons were out of the way, it wasn't that big of a deal. Also, remember this little camp underneath OD?
Here to take out a book. That tone.
It's a silly little thing. I've got 2 swords now, and they're really cool looking. My familiar must have, like, hit the max level or something. Level 50, alright. That's either the coolest buck I've ever seen, or it's just the perk of getting a high enough level. Oh well, not complaining either way.
Dimension shift! Dimension shift!
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was a dragon in this area, so I may as well farm it since I'm here.
Dimension shift. Dimension shift.
Since that was one of the other shards that I needed. Oh, also chair mimic. Oh, that's chair mimic again. Call forth a chair and set it down. I'm pretty sure that ranking up that shard literally just makes the chair that you summon more fancy. It's not the world's most useful shard, but I'm pretty sure that the fancier the chair, the better the MP regen, like you said in it. Oh, hey, shard.
Dimension shift. Dimension shift.
Okay, maybe those bugs were in the eastern tower. Because I do still want those. I do think that the fairy scarf looks nicer. I wonder how it feels to run that fast. It probably feels really nice. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the two swords are probably intentional. Like, I did look up where to find the bugs, and it did say this tower. It might have been wrong, or I may have just not come across them yet.
Dimension shift.
Another copy of Tev says, yes, we take those. I wish that the, yeah, it does say Tower of Twin Dragons. It's got to be here somewhere. I'm just doing an abysmal job of finding it. And for the video guide, I don't want to. I despise video guides that could just as easily have been like a picture and a paragraph of text. Like, give me back the game facts.
Dimension shift.
We had a format that worked perfectly well. pretty sure that the bugs are on the exterior of a tower. I'm pretty sure I remember them being there. Like, I've clearly not remembered correctly, and I'm pretty sure that there's nothing on this tower. Pretty sure that one's just for the boss. I also think that that shield guy also has a thing that I want. May as well kill him while I'm here. There we go. Oh, I must have had it. You know, the thought crosses my mind. I wonder if I could use Dimension Shift to dodge any of Odie's attacks. Honestly, the really problematic one is that time stop. Like, if I could anticipate that, and then, like, move into a safe spot, that'd make my life a lot easier. I saw my sword and for a second I got excited. I was like, oh, flying thing, that's the bug. You would think that finding a mite would not be this difficult. That's the sort of thing that's like everywhere when you don't want them. Okay, I don't think I've been here. Or maybe I have. This place feels gross enough to have bugs. It's got frogs. The frogs have to be eating something, surely. Oh, there you are. Unironically, I've been looking for that bug for ages. Okay, now I just need to find a loading zone. It would be amusing, if annoying, if that was like the only spawn of that bug in the game. There have to be more of it. It is what it is. I found my target. It might be annoying, but it is possible. And that's the bit that really matters. I hear fluttering. There you are. Grotesque shell. I'm actually just lost, by the way, in case you're wondering where I'm going. I'm looking for that thing. I do have that high jump I should be using more. Oh, loading zone here. If the book is closer to that, that'd be nice. I feel like it's here. Yeah, I usually encounter the bug around here. And now I'm just not encountering it at all. Yeah, that high jump's actually super convenient. There you are. That lightning bolt was not an adventure. Okay, being able to pop myself up into the air like that is actually so much cleaner than just burning twice. I like that a lot, actually. The controls take a little getting used to. That's okay. I wonder if the lycanthropes drop wool because they can't drop wolf. It makes sense in my head. I'm gonna get every copy of Resist Poison before I get a single copy of the shard that the bugs give. Is the bug not guaranteed to spawn or something? Feels like it's only here, like, a portion of the time. Better is like flying down from somewhere else. And I'm just actually this blind. I will say, at least moving around like this does feel really fun. Like, I imagine that like a 2D Superman game would feel kinda like this. I feel like I must be doing this wrong. Like, I feel like I shouldn't be having this much difficulty with encountering one enemy. And like, it's not even a notable enemy, it's an insect. I'm actually gonna look this up. This doesn't feel like I'm doing it right. Bloodstained Scythe Mite. They spawn when I am around blood, apparently. That would explain why they've been inconsistent. Okay, the second Bloodbringer's gotta be a bug then. Unfortunate. And here I thought that the reward for getting it to a certain level was getting two of them. Unless it is. Maybe if I level them all up, I'll get like an army. That'd be kinda cool. Yeah, so hypothetically, if I just make a lot of blood, it should make more mites spawn. It also means that I don't actually have to be specifically there. Matter of fact, I could probably use those, all those frogs down near where I spawn. Or where I come out the thing. Right, blood. They might show up. Scythe mites. There's so much blood here. Come, partake. I mean, I'll take that. finally getting somewhere. I don't know if I would have ever figured that out on my own. I legit thought it was just some, like, low spawn rate thing at that, like, particular spot. There we go. Summon insect. That took longer than it had any reason to. Okay. Next up is the Dark Elemental, who can be found in the Secret Sorcery Lab. Actually, let me save my game. I don't want to have to do that again.
Have you learned anything?
Here's what I've turned up on the monsters. Good. Have you... Here's what... Good. Have you... Here's what I... Good. Got any... Here's what I've turned up on the monsters.
Millionaire's Bane and Revenant. Those are another couple of bosses that I have yet to do. Secret Sorcery Lab. Dark Elemental. And kill those murderers dead. Oh, and they drop diamonds, even better. I like it so much better when farming looks like this. Increased resistance to darkness. I'm probably going to want more of those for fighting OD. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. Inferno Cave, Inferno Cave. Let's go to the Inferno Cave. I think that there was one of those things right there, yeah. I can just farm that while I'm here. That didn't take long. Augment luck, oh. That's actually probably worth farming all the way up to 9, given what it is. Getting the drop rate of things up is good. In hindsight, I should probably equip it if I want to use it for that reason. It might also be more worth my time to upgrade it before getting more copies of it. I don't actually know what it takes to upgrade it, let's find out.
Are you eating? What are we transmuting this time?
It's shard. Augment luck.
I'll go with this.
Ectoplasm.
I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
Hey, what do you want now? 3 ectoplasm and 3 holy water.
Come back.
Gonna get holy water from Dominique. Or the child that Dominique raised.
What does it...
Oh, in the great garden, seek the lunatic moon.
Okay, so that's the tip for getting to the Den of
The
Behemoths.
moon. Of course. So that's where I should go.
You understand what he means? Whatever it is, it sounds scary. Now would be a good time to stock up. Oh, what were you
Holy
going
water.
to buy? Is this right? Here you are.
It's good. So, what'll it be?
I'll go with this. I'll go with this. I'll go with this.
And Dragon's Wrath.
I'll go with this.
Ooh, pace yourself. I like it.
What drops Dragon's Wrath? It sounds endgamey. Abyssal Guardian. That's the big scary version of the dragon. Which I think one was a boss in the library, and then the farmable version's in the den, so... At least I think that's how it goes. I should only need one more. Oh, thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. And thank you for the hydration and for the rotation. Ow. These all increase my power. I don't think I'm gonna find a dragon in here. I think they're up there. Oh, here's the dragon. Thank you, bats. I don't think they meant to help me, but they did. I might be in a little bit of danger. I appear to be dead. This is fine. I need to get augment luck again. Oops. Well, that didn't take long. Yeah, upgrading's not gonna take any time at all, though. Literally the only one thing that I actually had to farm for that, I was farming. Let's go get that back up.
Hello. Oh, what would you like to buy? Is this here you are?
Are you eating proper? What are we transmuting this time?
Shard. Augment gold. That'll come in handy. First things first, though.
I'll go with this. 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 I'll go with this.
Stop back.
Okay, do I want to farm more copies of the shard, or do I want to farm the material to make a grade 9? I think getting a grade 9 is probably worth the effort, because then I can have the skill shard and the passive shard versions of it running at the same time. It might be faster to get to the den. It might be faster to get to the den of behemoths through here. If only I could remember where the portal to the den of behemoths actually was.
Dimension shift.
I want to say it's over here.
Dimension shift.
I don't think I'm remembering correctly. No, I was not.
Dimension shift.
Actually, that's where one of the other bosses was, if memory serves. I will attend to that at a later time. Okay, I literally just need one thing off of a dragon. The extra funny thing to me is, like, I remember on my normal playthrough, like, for like a day I was— oh hey, Orichalcum, I needed that. For like a day I got, like, absolutely bodied by OD on normal mode. And then I was streaming the game to a friend and I was just like, hey, check out how tough this boss is, and then I, like, no-hit him. And the friend was just like, you say this boss was difficult, and I was like, it was. I have no idea how this happened.
Dimension shift.
Release Toad. I'm gonna let regenerate do its thing for a minute. I'm just gonna go look for, like, money or something. Rude. I can also use healing. It's not very efficient, though. Okay, there's probably plenty. The old man came out on the wrong side. I blame him for this. This is fine. Actually, come to think of it, there is a save point right there, so it probably makes more sense to go there and then try to get the heals. Oh. You just walk through like that. I guess they give you 1,000 gold so that you have something to fight the guy with. Unless you're like me and just, like, completely miss it. For a second I got excited because Void Ray, but no, what I want is, I think it's literally called Dragon's Wrath. Oh, this still feels way more doable than, doing it the other way. Lion Lord's Mane. You ever mash to try and escape a grapple and just end up, like, turning gravity upside down? Because that's apparently a thing that happens sometimes. Oh, and there's the Dragon's Wrath. Alright. That could have taken way longer. Glad it didn't.
So, what'll it be?
Craft, enhance. equipment
I'll go
look.
with this.
Pace yourself.
And now it is a passive shard as well as a skill shard. I'm pretty sure Black Augments drops as well. Yeah, now the thing to do is to get 8 more copies of it. Which hopefully will be easier with it being rank 9. Or grade 9 rather. This might take a while, even with luck. Either way though, like, I am seeing a very noticeable increase in how many crits I'm getting. So that is going to be a damage boost. Also, yeah, I am starting to think that the second sword was a bug that I somehow pulled off. Which is a shame, that was really cool. Actually, I wonder how... Sadly, it's not as good as the Valkyrie Blade. For most of the game, Bloodbringer's actually been better or on par with my main weapon. I just not been using it because I wanted it as a familiar. And it seems that the poor thing has fallen behind. Granted, I could still upgrade it twice. It would be really cool if upgrading a familiar also made it, like, not occupy the slot. I think I just need, like, one more piece of Orichalcum, maybe 2, and I can make it full rank. Politely asking this thing to give me more shards. It gave me 2 on different save. There we go. It gave me 2 on different save files, or timelines, I should say. Without too much effort. Or anguish, rather. Oh, we just need 7 more. The beatings will continue until this happens. That said, we're basically out of time for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Wednesday. The game is going to be Shadow of the Colossus. Next time that I'm playing Bloodstained is going to be on Friday. Though I may or may not do some stuff off stream. Possibly in my Discord. Before then, just because I'm kind of at the point where I'm grinding. Either way, I hope you have an absolutely wonderful night. I hope to see you again. Let's find somebody to raid. And then the music just kind of awkwardly cuts out. Yeah, let's find somebody to raid.